Good morning, children. Welcome back to class 2, lesson 11, Jane and the Chimps. Today we are going to read a story about a lady called Jane, and chimp means chimpanzees. You can look into the picture. I will now read the lesson. Jane Goodall loved animals. As a child, she loved watching animals for hours. She wanted to know everything about them, what they eat, and how they live. There was a very much interest shown by Jane Goodall from the childhood days. She loved the animals very much. She liked them. She loved them, watching them for long hours. And she wanted to know everything about the animals, how they live, what they eat, etc. After finishing school, Jane went to Africa for work. Her job was to watch chimpanzees and write about them. So she moved to Gombe, where the chimps lived. What did Jane Goodall do? After finishing her schooling, she went to Africa. Why? She went to Africa for her job. So what was her work there in Africa? Her job was to watch chimpanzees and write about them. Now, what was her work? Her work was to go to Africa, and there her job was to look after the chimpanzees, watching chimpanzee and writing about the chimpanzees. So she moved to Gombe, where the chimps lived. Where did she go? She go to Africa. And in Africa, where did she go? Went to Gombe. And she started to watch the chimps or the chimpanzees. Every morning, Jane walked into the forest, climbed to a peak, and looked for chimps. I want to learn new things about them, she wrote in her diary. Now, what did she do? Every morning, she used to get up early in the morning and she used to walk. She used to go to the forest. She climbed up a peak. She used to climb a peak. Peak means the highest point of a hill or a mountain. And what she used to do? She used to sit there and she used to watch the chimps. And what did she write in her diary? She wrote in her diary that I want to learn new things about them. Who are them here? Them means the chimpanzees or the chimps. She wanted to write about them. In the beginning, the chimp stayed away from Jane. Sometimes she couldn't see them for many days. She could not hear their pant-hoot calls to one another. But chimps were too watching Jane. Now what has happened here? In the beginning, the chimps, they did not come near the lady Jane. They were scared of her. They did not come to her. Now sometimes she could see the chimps and sometimes she could not see the chimps for many long days. She could not hear their pant-hoot calls. Pant-hoot calls means the sounds that is made by the chimpanzees to call the another chimps. She could not hear them. She could not see them. But the chimps were too watching Jane. Now what they were doing? Somewhere hiding, the chimps were watching Jane. But she could not see them or she could not hear them. After a few weeks, the chimps slowly let Jane see them. Jane was very excited. She gave chimp a different name. To her, every chimp was special. Now what happened? After few weeks hiding and watching, animals were hiding and watching Jane. Jane could not see the animals or she could not hear them. But after few weeks, what has happened? Chimp slowly let the Jane to look at them. Jane was now very much excited and she gave each chimp a different name. She started giving names to each of the chimp whichever she met. To her, every chimp was very special. For her, every chimpanzees were different from others. After a few weeks, the chimps slowly let Jane see them. Jane was very excited. Now, what happened? Jane was very much excited to see the chimps in front of her walking, jumping, running, eating something, or the walking or running. And now what happened? She started to give names to each of the chimp. Why? Because she thought that every chimp is different from other. So she started to name them. Then one day, a chimp with a grey beard came close to Jane. She had named him David Greybeard. Jane offered him bananas. David Greybeard took bananas from my hands, she wrote in her diary that day. Now, what happened? One day, one chimp came walking with her. How was the chimp looking like? Looked Chimp had grey beard and it came very close to Jane. And now Jane named him as David Greybeard because it has grey color beard. She named it with the same grey beard and also the name was David Greybeard. Jane offered him bananas. Offered him bananas means gave him bananas. David Greybeard, what did he do? He took the bananas from her and he started to eat the bananas. That was mentioned in her diary on the same day as chimpanzee ate banana. She wrote in her diary that chimp Greybeard has taken the banana from her hands. Jane learned many new things about chimps. She found out that chimps could make and use tools. Before this, nobody knew that wild animals made tools. She saw David Greybeard eat meat. Before this, everybody thought chimps only ate plants. Now, what new things did Jane learn? Jane was behind all these chimps. Day by day, she learned many new things about the chimps. She found that the chimps are using tools. They themselves, they make and they use the tools. And also they eat other animals. She did not know that until that day. She did not know that they were eating animals. They were only plant eating animals, she thought, but they were also the animals who used to eat the meat or flesh of the other animals. Slowly, the chimps let Jane come even closer. They even let her sit among them. Chimps all around me. What a day, she wrote. Now, what happened? Slowly, they got used to this lady, Jane. They all started to come closer to her. Even if she go closer to them also, they never mind that, and they were also sitting closer to her. Now they all started to sit around her. Now she wrote that in her diary that the chimps sat around me. What a day! It was a lovely day when she was sitting surrounded by all the chimps together. For years, Jane spent most of her time among the chimps. She watched the chimps when they were happy. She saw them hold hands, hug, kiss, and laugh just like people. Now, what has happened? She spent many long years watching the chimps in the same place, Gombe. She was watching them for many long years. Now, what did she find? She found out when they are happy. She was watching them very closer. She saw them holding hands. She saw them hugging each other, and she saw them kissing each other and laughing, how just like we people do. She watched the animal chimp and she thought that how we people enjoy as the same they too enjoy. Now she saw them hugging, kissing, laughing, holding hands, being happy, being sad as we people do. Jane liked people. Jane watched the chimps when they were angry or scared. She even saw them fight, but she kept out of the way. Now, Jane, like the people, Jane started to watch the chimps. What they used to do when how they used to get angry, how they used to get scared, and how they used to fight each other. She used to watch them very closer so that she could make out that the chimps are angry, the chimps are scared, or the chimps are fighting to each other. When the chimps are fighting to each other, she never used to go with them. What did she used to do? She used to stay away. She did not go closer to them, or she could hear the fight between the chimps. Either than that, she never went closer to them. At the same time, forests in Africa were being cut down and animals were losing their homes. Jane's friends were in danger. Now, what happened? After staying for many long years with the animals, now suddenly the African forests were being cut down by the people. What will happen if if the forest is cut down? The animals will lose their shelter, their homes will be lost. They can't stay back there itself in the same forest. They wanted to go from one forest to another forest for their livelihood, or they may die. So now what happened? The forests were cut down and the houses of the chimps were lost. Now the friends of Jane were in danger. So Jane left Gombe and traveled all over the world. She asked people to help save the chimps and the forests. Now what happened? As the forest was destroyed by the people of Africa, Jane left that place, Gombe, and then she started traveling all over the world. And what did she do as she was traveling all over the world? She asked the people to save the chimpanzees and also to save the forests. Why? Because the forests are the shelter for the shelter or the homes, and also the animals get food only if forests are there. So she started to ask people to save the forest and also to save the chimps. Jane returned to Gombe whenever she could. She watched and listened again to her friends in the forest. Now, what happened? As she was traveling whole over the world, all the places she used to travel, but sometimes she used to come back to the place Gombe, which was in Africa. And also what she used to do, she used to watch and listen again to her friends in the forest. Who are her friends in the forest, children? They are the chimps or the chimpanzees. She used to go there and she used to watch them play, jump happily in the forest. Hope all have understood the story, children. Thank you.